Okay, right. So welcome back, everybody. This week we've got James is up first. James is going to talk about economics in practice, and then we're going to have Annabelle on the psychology of design. Where's Annabelle? Aha. Okay. Yes, of course. Right. Okay, James. Without further ado, the floor is yours.
In this talk, I'd like to speak about the effect of economics in our everyday life. Although to some people economics may be seen as a dry topic, it affects us in everything we do. Whether it's from an individual perspective, such as choices about work or leisure, or in the bigger picture with inflation and economic growth. I'm going to look at 5 different areas, from the tricks that companies use against us to how our emotions lead us into making illogical economic decisions. The first area I'm going to talk about is how big van coffee shops, such as Costa and Starbucks, use tricks in order to get us to spend more money. In the past, Costa used fair trade in order to do this. They charged around an extra 10 pence for fair trade coffee to the people who wanted to help farmers in poorer countries. However, this is no guarantee that that same premium paid by the customer is the same premium the farmers receive. In reality, in many drinks, such as cappuccinos, it should only cost around an extra 2 pence for fair trade. So over 80% of the money goes directly to customer, and it's clear to see how this adds up over time. More recently, other methods have been used. If we take Starbucks, for example, they have different names for drinks in order to sound more luxurious. The different names for sizing and extras are used to take the customer's eyes off of the price of the drink. In reality, the price of increasing the size of your drink or adding whipped cream is a lot more than what it costs Starbucks to make it. Furthermore, price targeting is also used in other ways, especially when considering location. If you look at many train stations up and down the country, there's often an M&S or a W.H. Smith, and it wouldn't surprise you to know that these are all very pricey. However, sometimes under half a kilometre away, there's that same M&S or W.H. Smith, but just less pricey. Very few commuters are willing to travel this small distance to save some money. Therefore, this price targeting is very effective. Less obvious uses of price targeting comes with different store locations in different areas of the city. In a more wealthy area, all the essential goods are relatively expensive. Instead of simply decreasing the price in a less wealthy area, there are cheaper substitutes such as own brand drinks and food. In the Sainsbury's in a more wealthy part of London, you would struggle to find Sainsbury's own brand goods, and the essential goods would all be made by more expensive brands. Next slide, please. The next area I want to speak about is convenience and scarcity, which play a large role in achieving success for many companies. If we again look at train stations as an example, scarcity plays a huge role. Many busy commuters are unwilling to travel a far distance in order to get their drinks. So the places in the most prime location get the most customers. If you look at York Station, for example, Costa is the prime shop location, so they can dictate their prices. It's safe to assume that the Costa has a paid agreement with the landlord, so no competitors can come set up right next to them. If you see in York Station, there is also a Starbucks, which is in a less prime location with less commuters that travel through this. If competitors want to come and set up, they have to go to a less prime location or wait until the agreement runs out. In this situation, the landlord also holds high scarcity power. It's more than likely another 10 companies would like this prime slot of land to set up their shops. So the landlord can charge them most of their expected profits in order to set up their shop there. As in this situation, the landlord has a unique resource, which is the prime shop location. He does the rest out of this deal. Convenience also can apply to this example. Busy commuters pay a big price for convenience. So for those who are less of a hurry or people who work locally, they can walk to any other place, which are all equally convenient. Therefore, many companies use price targeting in order to like reducing prices for local people who work locally or for students. And by doing this, they gain more profit than if they treated everyone the same. Next one, please. The next area I want to speak about is behavioral economics. This is the psychological factors that influence an economic decision. Without us knowing, over 90% of our decisions are influenced by subconscious urges. Supermarkets are big culprits when it comes to using behavioral economics to their advantage, such as placing good deals out of clear eye line or forcing customers to walk all the way through shops in order to get to the essential goods. The biggest use of behavioral economics in marketing comes with the word free, a common one being buy one, get one free. This spikes humans' dopamine levels and persuades them to take advantage of this offer, even if they didn't originally plan to purchase this item. Like coffee shops, they also use other tricks, such as forcing customers to buy in bulk rather than in individual packets, when price per unit is exactly the same, or using the attraction of special offers, when in reality, these offers have been on for the past 2 to 3 months. Scarcity also plays a large role in behavioral economics. Simply, people put a larger value on something if they believe it's only available for a limited time. This is how seasonal drinks and food are so successful. Starbucks are especially good when it comes to this type of marketing, with their world-renowned pumpkin spice latte with the phrase, "Enjoy it while it lasts." Next one, please. Opportunity cost relates to everything we do in our lives, whether it's choosing to go to school in the morning or watching television in your free time. It's the loss of a specific alternative when a different alternative is chosen. An example of this could be going to the cinema. Obviously, it costs money to do this, but also prevents you from doing something else. If the next best thing would be, let's say, revising to an exam, the opportunity cost would be the money spent on the ticket and the time spent studying. When thinking about opportunity costs, there are 4 main factors. The first one being price. This all depends on varying levels of income. For someone with a lower level of income, more influence would be put on price as a part of opportunity cost. For example, when going out for the day, they may choose to bring their own food instead of going to a restaurant. This is obviously a cheaper alternative. For people with more money, they are more likely to put more value on the other 3 factors rather than price. The next one is time. Everyone has 24 hours in a day, no matter how much you earn. Therefore, every economic decision made bears this in mind. Would you be willing to travel an extra 10 minutes out of your morning commute in order to save an extra £1? For some people, this may seem totally illogical. It's up to the individual making the decision to see how high they value time as part of opportunity cost. The next one is effort, which goes hand in hand with time. Again, it may take time to drive to your favorite restaurant, but also with that comes the effort. Therefore, you could settle for a closer restaurant, which requires less effort to get to. In addition, you could search on the internet for better offers, but by doing this requires more effort. The last one is utility. This is often considered as the most important factor. It's essentially the enjoyment someone gets out of the decision made. Everyone wants to maximize their utility, but are restrained by price, time, and effort. For example, if someone wants to go on holiday abroad, they have to consider whether they can afford to pay their bills when going. In general, as your income rises, your influence of utility increases, but the price decreases. Next slide, please. Now we can look at something which incorporates all of these, such as going to Nando's. Obviously, this costs more than it would to go than to eat at home, but also requires you to walk into the centre of town and the effort that comes with that. Now you need to see if it's worth it when considering utility. Obviously, Nando's is a very good restaurant, so the utility is very high. But is it worth the price, time, and effort all combined? Now you can look at different alternatives, such as getting a takeaway or just eating at home. And then you can consider if this is the best decision for this specific time. Next slide, please. The last area I'd like to speak about is sunk cost fallacy. The sunk cost fallacy is our tendency to follow through on something if we have already invested time, money, or effort into it, whether or not the current cost outweighs the benefits. This means we often go against evidence that is no longer the best decision. An example of this could be if we buy a ticket to a festival in advance. On the day of the festival, it's raining and you're feeling ill. You know by going to the festival, you're risking feeling even more ill due to the bad weather, but you're still most likely to go as you do not want to waste your money, even though the enjoyment of staying at home would be greater than it is going to the festival. The sunk cost fallacy doesn't solely apply to your average person. A very famous example of sunk cost fallacy is with the Concorde. This is a project the British and French government were working on together. After an original investment of 200 million, it was clear to see that they would require more money to complete it, and the expected revenue was going to be quite low. Instead of doing the intelligent thing, which pull off the project altogether, they carried on with it. This could have been to avoid embarrassment at an unfinished project, or could simply be down to the effect of sunk cost fallacy. However, benefits. If you take a gym membership, for example, once you've bought a gym membership, you feel like you need to get your money's worth out of it, and it forces you to go more often. Even though obviously it's not the case that you're wasting your money by not attending, but this shows a case where sunk cost fallacy can benefit us. Overall, the sunk cost fallacy occurs as we're not rational decision makers, and we're often influenced by our emotions. When we have made an investment, we feel guilty if we do not follow through on that decision, and we don't take into account that the time, money, and the effort into it can never be recovered. We make decisions based on past costs instead of present and future costs and benefits, which are rationally should be the only ones that matter. Next slide. Overall, it's clear to see that economics is fundamental in everything we do in our lives, and I believe it's important to see how certain things influence us and make us spend more money. Thanks for listening.
I'm getting a cold chill, memories of my not GCSE listening to that. Does anybody have any questions for James?
Who are the main contributors to price targeting?
It's mainly the big bank companies who use their influence in the markets, then change their prices, and eventually they're like the ones that choose the prices because they can lower their price, and this means that everyone else has to match it. Otherwise, they lose out on competition.
Walter.
Can you explain what some of the subconscious urges we have in economics, and can you explain the source of the subconscious urges?
I think it's mainly down to like the things like if you see the sign that something is feel as a special offer and attraction, we believe that this is like better than it would be to do anything else, when in reality it might be the exact same price or and things like that.
As we're coming out of lockdown at the moment, do you think that's going to completely skew some of this behaviour? So, for example, someone who thought that walking 10 minutes to get to Nanda, no matter how amazing it is, wouldn't sort of involve worse than before, but perhaps now we just think to be a bit of balance of some people they'll go the extra mile because finally they can do things, and some people perhaps they're more cautious and nervous.
Yeah, I mean, definitely when we were in like the height of it, definitely people were influenced more by safety around it more than the utility out of it or the time and effort going into it. But I think the principle still stays the same.
One way, if I can, is to do with the balance. So on the one hand, it's a very, very good case to have companies can ramp up the prices unnecessarily. So, for example, your railway station. And then the other sort of perspective would be that actual competition keeps prices down and quality up. So just curious to know your thoughts on sort of pan back a little bit more national picture. Do you think it roughly balances out, or do you think it's skewed in one direction or the other? Yeah, I definitely think it's more if people reduce prices, then everyone has to follow suit. But I think in that situation, for example, it was more down to the fact that people are busy, and most people traveling are usually more wealthy, so so they don't mind spending the extra bit of money if they can save their time by doing so. But I think overall, for example, for like the bigger companies who don't require as much money than the smaller single companies, they can bring down prices, and everyone has to follow that.
Thank you. Any more questions? Right, in that case, I'll hand over to Wolfie.
Thank you very much, Ms. Jones. So, yeah, Barker, thank you very much for the talk. I thought it was quite eye-opening. And I think the main thing I really took away from it was how much the economy is within advertising, and how with such simple tricks you can appeal to the subconscious. So, yeah, I definitely think next time I want to know those, I'll rethink them. Thank you, Bob. Thank you.
Whether we're aware of it or not, design surrounds us. Using visceral intention and mind-stimulating visuals, design keeps us connected to the world and helps us navigate physical and virtual life. But what makes design memorable? When I ask this question, I can imagine a number of products, branding, interiors, film, or even architecture spring to mind. But what about that product or experience is such a tangible and memorable experience? I believe psychology is the powerhouse behind this. Memorable design is intentional design. Ever wonder why some products simply sell themselves? That is a designer playing with the subconscious mind. In order to engage our subconscious mind, designers utilize something that we all have, our senses. Using eyesight, touch, and hearing, designers are able to influence the way we make decisions. Now you're probably thinking, a designer can't mess with my mind. I make my own decisions. Well, allow me to change that. Next one, please. Can I have a show of hands for people in this room that own an iPhone or an Apple product? I can imagine it's not the first iPhone invented either. Despite the lagging operating systems, short battery life, or your broken charger, we keep coming back for more. So why is that? The answer is design. For companies to build trust, building trust is a primary objective of a brand. As consumers, we correlate familiarity that we see in Apple's interfaces and brand aesthetics with trust. Despite the declining battery life, I think it would work for good design. We'd all be buying much cheaper phones. This kind of brand recognition is how design draws in a user, by presenting trustworthiness, quality, or strength through visuals and aesthetics. So we've established that designers have the power to affect our decisions, but specifically, how do they do this? A great example of psychology in design is use of colour. Our brains process colour before words and shapes, so colour is more than just a visual experience. A study carried out by a university in Canada found that colours have the power to increase and decrease appetite, enhance mood, calm down customers, and even reduce their perception of waiting time. Why colours affect human emotions is not straightforward. Due to universal human experiences, it is possible to predict how the majority of people may respond to a gift in colour. Customers generally make an initial judgment of a product within 90 seconds of interaction with it, and about 70 to 90% of this judgment is based on colour. People often see a logo of a brand as representation of the company. Without prior experience to a logo, we begin to associate a brand with the certain characteristics that we associate with the prime colour of its logo. The urgency and danger associated with the colour red links back to primal instincts that we have with blood. The use of this in design is used to provide caution, capture attention, and as we can see in a sales sign, which provides urgency and encourages us to buy a product. I think that is design is another element to forcing us to buy things, not just economics. The colour purple is still associated with luxury, as purple dye is excessively expensive and rare in many Asian cultures, and only used by royalty. Subsequently, this is why you might find yourself reaching for the familiarity of a Cadbury star over another brand. Apple's logo is another example. The neutrality that we see in colour grey is probably because it's between the shades of white and black. Throughout Apple's branding, grey provides unity and the clear neutral look that we associate with the brand. We never think about the golden arch to start thinking about McDonald's. This might remind you of the fries or other food they sell, but the colours of red and yellow are also chosen for a specific reason. Red stimulates our mind and reminds us of being active, which also increases our heart rate, which helps to jumpstart our appetite. Yellow is also a symbol of happiness, and is also most visible in daylight, which is probably why you can spot a McDonald's sign on a crowded road. Essentially, this logo makes us hungry, encouraging us to want to buy the product they sell, and also making us feel happy. Another easily recognizable logo, the Ford emblem, is Henry Ford's signature in an oval. The logo uses several shades of blue, which make us recognize stability and the reliability of the brand. This trademark oval or circular shape can be seen in many different types of car logos. It's used in countless designs because of our recognition with the circular shape of the steering wheel or a car's tires. From a psychological point of view, a circle also means unity, integration, and wholeness. This sense of completeness and confidence is what many car companies want to portray in their branding. Subliminal messages in design. Subliminal messages in design are used frequently in advertisement and film. Designers use this to put a message or accompanying value in our minds sometimes without us even realizing it. Disney has long been accused of putting subliminal messages in their films, especially sneaking the iconic Mickey Mouse symbol into almost every film in some form. So why is it necessary for Disney to do this? Are the animators just having fun? Essentially, people, especially children, love the idea of Mickey Mouse, and the character and the brand associated with it brings happiness and joy. So present some remnants of both in all their films, then these happy feelings are bound to transfer into Disney's films. Whether or not a child actually likes the film that they're watching, the joy of Disney and Disney brands still shines through. This subliminal design is slightly more obvious than the other, but just as clever. Pepsi was first to release the advert on the left, playing up the horror of receiving a Coke instead of Pepsi, which aims to create an unconscious bias in the viewer's mind. Coca-Cola's response was perhaps even better, capitalizing on the Coke being the real hero. It worked so well because the two classic competitors managed to make consumers see their product in a positive light while also casting a clear shadow on competition. It's designed to make you feel something, a bias to the drink, without actually feeling one. Fundamentally, design unlocks solutions to all our problems. Who knows what we'd do without it? And although design is capable of altering our decisions or perceptions, we shouldn't be afraid of it. Because when designers leverage psychology, they are able to build more intuitive and human-centered products and experiences. Instead of forcing users to conform to the design of a product, using key principles from psychology, designers are able to design around the way we live and think.